All right, welcome everyone to our next Lunch and Learn here for Douglas Media Group. My name is Kevin King, and today I have a special guest with me since the topic is smart homes, kind of how to basically set that up. I found the only person I know who still teaches me a lot of stuff about the smart home world. Brian Black, good to have you. Good to have you, man.
Good to be here, man. You need new friends.
True story. So I appreciate you joining me today. I'm going to get our list up here of all of our great topics.
Of course.
So the smart home world is something that's been around for years. And I've always found it extremely frustrating because it was really one of those things for the longest time where you had to have a lot of networking knowledge, programming knowledge, piecing everything together. It didn't just work off the shelf.
No, it was very intimidating at first. I agree.
Yeah. And then you started to get these little ecosystems where you had like Hue and they had their hub and so you could kind of connect things into the hub, but it really only worked inside of its own ecosystem.
Right.
But luckily now, and I think this was really spurred on by the competition of the big three, you have Apple, Google, and Amazon involved in the smart home space very heavily. And especially Amazon, since they've really opened their Amazon Alexa API so that a lot of products can sort of get into that ecosystem. Yeah, it's really brought it down to home. So first, though, what would you say is a smart home to you by definition?
Oh, wow. Well, that just depends on how much you want to make your home smart. Just to give you, for example, when I first started, I had a gift card for Christmas. And I was like, well, I want to pick up some lights. So I went and picked up the Philips Hue like starter kit because, as you well know, but as everybody else not know, I'm an Apple nerd. Everything I have in my house is Apple. So I wanted something that would integrate with HomeKit. And basically what that means is HomeKit usually will come pre-installed on your iPhone unless you've removed it. It is a free app. You can basically take anything that is compatible with it and integrate it into one place. And what that means is you could literally say, hey, Siri, turn on living room. My kids love it because I put it on all their phones. So there are lights in their rooms that actually each other can control. But just to go back to what a smart home is, it just gives you the ability to centralize your lighting, HVAC, cameras. I mean, really, it goes as far as you want to take it, or you can keep it as simple as you want. You know, again, when I first started, I just had a few lights. That way, at night, if we're watching a movie, I literally get my phone, say movie time. I have lights behind our TV that will go to a percentage of lighting. That way, the lights behind you aren't showing up on the screen, but you still have the room bright enough to see if you're walking around, if it's at night or whatnot. And even at night, I have a setting that's called good night. And when I either say good night or I hit the good night button on my phone, all the lights that are controlled in the house dim down to 5%. That way you kind of have a nightlight feature. TV turns off. Thermostat will go to a preset temperature. You can have, I mean, again, it's just as limitless as you want it. You can have contact sensors that let you know if your garage door is still open. So again, it's just it's the ability to incorporate all that into one spot.
Yeah, no, I think you absolutely nailed it. The word that kept coming to mind for me as you were talking about all the features is almost automation, and whether that is on a timer, voice command, or based on emotion or contact sensor or activity on a camera, something like that, it allows something else to then happen, whether that be a light turn on or listen. Perfect timing. My Ring doorbell just went off. Someone's dropping off a package. So my Amazon Echo just alerted me, hey, someone's at the front door.
I mean, what better timing than that?
I know.
Right.
I know that was pretty good. So you covered a lot of the devices. So I think now we'll go into kind of an overview of the control. One thing I want to make this as basic as can be for someone who's never ventured into the smart home space. So I would say the very first thing we won't really talk much about, but is crucial, is a network. you've got to have a good Wi-Fi network
Yes.
in your house. And you and I play around in that advanced level of multiple networks, routers, access points, so you can get the strength out.
Right.
Because that's one thing people don't think about is you're only as good as that network connection and how far it'll reach. You can't put a camera in your basement if you can't get Wi-Fi down there, something like that.
Right. And that's one thing that I really did not think about when I started, because, it depends on who your ISP is as to what kind of modem you have, what kind of router you have. Some people don't really check to see what download and upload speeds they have. And all those things factor in because, you start buying multiple cameras, like you were saying, or multiple, thermostats. Some people have 2 to 3 different zones in their house as far as thermostats. Some people have lights all over. And like you were just saying, it is contingent on how good your network is. So that's definitely where you've got to start.
Yeah. And I think people should be very aware of that because a typical, I would say a low cost modem, your $50, $60, router is going to handle somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 devices well.
Right.
And now that everyone has smart TVs, an iPad, a phone, a laptop, it eats that up fast.
Yeah. And that's, again, like you were saying, that's something to think about because, for example, in our house, I know there are multiple iPads, there are multiple phones, there are multiple computers. All that factors in with whether you've got surveillance, whether you've got, all those different things because it's passing data all the time. And so that, it's just kind of like you think about a water hose. You can only force so much water through a regular hose before you have to get to a bigger one like a fire truck. So it's that passing of data, you have to be able to handle it.
Yeah. And so that's something that people really need to think about. So if you start out, and I see this in some of the smart home groups, Wise, which we'll talk about in a little bit, we're in their group. And I know you see this time and time again, someone buys their first camera and they go, hey, I'm losing it's not recording or it's not sending me notifications or whatever. And they're just on a really poor wireless connection. So I think that's the good foundation that everyone should start with. Just so people are aware, you have basically just a simple wireless router somewhere in the $80 to $100 range is really going to get you something nice these days. A Netgear Nighthawk or something like that. Then they have mesh networks, which you're starting to get up in that $200 to $300 range, but that's multiple access points throughout your house. So it's not having as many devices per point, and then it's also not having to travel as far. And now we have just entered into the threshold of Wi-Fi 6, which is allowing access points to handle 100 devices instead of that 25 to 30. But you're looking at $600-700 for a mesh setup. So if money is no object, that's where you should go because that's now on the market. And I'll let you jump to that in a second. I meant to mention this at the beginning. All of these products and things we're talking about, I'm going to put together a blog post and attach it to this, kind of some show notes. We'll have links to all the products we talk about. So don't think that you've got to jot all this down or that we're just going to throw a bunch of stuff at you and you have to, pause it and try to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I was going to say is they're definitely in the right place if they're looking to do it on a budget, because I know that's one thing that you and I have both been pretty diligent about is we love tech, but we also have to make the budget balance. So we're not going to go spend $600-700 on things. So I just think this is a good way to start that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that Douglas Media Group as a whole, really tries to focus on is what makes sense for your budget. You can spend as much as you want on technology, but there are some great free options, low-cost options as far as software and some of the things we'll talk about here. Some awesome free options for getting your stuff to talk together. And so, we try to be very budget friendly, and that's where we'll talk about Wise in a second, because that's definitely. But let's start with the not budget friendly portion of this.
Yes.
And we mentioned it in passing. You have the big three: Google, Amazon, and Apple, which all have a hub. Essentially, they've got a smart home device that is really what you want in the center of your ecosystem. I particularly use Amazon a lot because their Echoes are a lot cheaper even now with the dots. Great speakers on Prime Day, which is coming up in June. You're going to be able to snag them for like $20 a piece. You can put one almost in every room of your house. But also you use Apple, which I use as well. And if you've got an iPhone or an iPad, it's already built in. You don't have to buy something separate. Uh-oh, I lost
I
you a
went with
little
the
bit.
Apple HomeKit.
Sorry, you froze just for a second there. Start over.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
That's kind of why I went with Apple when I began this endeavor, if you will, is because I already had it, and I was curious how it would integrate in, how these different devices would work with it. And again, everyone in my house has an iPhone or iPad. That way, if when I get all this set up, it's not something I have to add to everybody's phone, or that way, if I'm not home, nobody else can control it or anything like that. So that's one of the reasons I went with that, is because not that it's better or worse, because it has its bugs, it has its perks as well. But that's basically why I went with Apple, kind of like with you with Amazon.
Yeah, and I think that's something important for people to know, is that there is no one better option, in my opinion. And I've
No,
pretty much tested them all. I don't have a Google On Hub in my house, basically because I don't really even like to Google search if I don't have to with their data practices. So I definitely don't want them listing in. I'm not 100% sure Amazon is a lot better. Privacy wise, I definitely think Apple would be the way to go if that's your top.
Yeah. So far, if you're a stickler for privacy, I would agree.
And something I've noticed as well, because these are all voice command based concepts. The Amazon works really well on certain features. Siri works really good on other features as well. They've built some kits in, like if you want to ask sports statistics or something to Siri, great for that.
Yes.
Other things, she just has no idea what you're talking about. And the Amazon is the exact same way. Sometimes I'll ask a question and I'm like, what, you weren't even close to what I was getting at. So really it comes down to kind of what you feel comfortable with, and just knowing going into it that no one is going to do everything perfect. They're just still getting there, even though the Echo came out 5-6 years ago at this point.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I think HomeKit's not too far from that time, as far as, because I know I've been using it for about 3 years now, as far as a daily using it to control lights, to control this, control that. So
yeah, and that's one thing I would mention is when people are looking at buying products, and we're going to talk about a bunch of different kinds over the next little bit. Look on that product to make sure it works with whatever you went with. There are definitely products that I have that will not work with HomeKit. I try to use my Apple devices on it. It's not going to recognize it. So you kind of have to use some other third-party bridge to make that happen. Luckily, Amazon is in just about everything. I haven't found a lot of smart home products that aren't Amazon compatible.
I'll be honest.
Yeah, the way they kept everything open.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. As using Apple, that's one thing I've learned, is that since they are so diligent on privacy, you're less likely to find as many items, because they put them through so many different tests and make sure that it's not stored here and it's not stored there. And I'm not saying that any of the others are any less diligent. It's just they all have different standards that they have to achieve before they will put their name on it, or before they will put that, HomeKit or Alexa or whatever on that box. So some of them are it's harder to find various things depending on the service you use.
Yeah, 100%. So you start with, kind of what I call the hub, the central spot.
Yes.
After you've got a good Wi-Fi connection, then let's start adding on products. Okay. The first thing I ever started with was a simple outlet, and I actually have the original one here because unfortunately it really doesn't work anymore. Just because this was a very discounted option. I think these were only about $10 or $15 5 years ago. Now a $10 or $15 outlet is a much better option, but they just aren't compatible with my modern ecosystem. But so they look various different ways. And it basically just interfaces between your wall outlet and your device. It's a simple on-off proposition. It's either you cut it on, you cut it off. In my house, I don't have a lot of overhead lighting. I have a lot of floor lamps. So that's
as do we.
That's something that's been super beneficial for me, is that I just put this on a lamp somewhere in the house, and now I have just about every lamp in my house on one.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's great. So you can use a voice command and say, so what you do when you set one up, everyone's a little bit different, but you basically have a setup process where you connect through generally their native app on your phone. So whatever, most of my outlets are iHome brand. So you go into the iHome app, you add a new product, and they've got their process. You set it up, you name it, and that's going to be the important part. And that's where you kind of want to have a little bit of a plan in what you're doing. So you don't want to just say lamp, and then you end up adding 5 in your house to 5 different lamps, and then have to go back and rename and think. So I always just start with what room is it in, and then what kind of device it is. So office lamp, living room lamp, something like that. And then once it's set up, you have to then connect it to your hub. Typically, Apple is really good, and Amazon as well. Usually by the time you open up your Amazon Alexa app, it will say, hey, there's a new device on the network. We already see that. Used to, you kind of had to finagle it a little bit, and sometimes you have to connect inside of that app to that brand. So you might have to authenticate into iHome or into Wise or what have you, so that they can talk to each other securely.
Right. Like, for example, if it is a HomeKit compatible, usually there'll be either I can't remember how many digits it is, or a QR code that you open Home. It's called Home, even though it's actually HomeKit, and you scan it. So it's,
right.
I mean, I hate to use the term stupid proof, but really they make it super easy compared to, 5-10 years ago, when you're doing any type of automation, you're looking at programming, you're looking at a whole different world of trying to make something simple. Now it is as simple as you scan a QR code, you put in a so many digit code, and it pulls it in for you. So I think they've taken the complexity of it and made it to where if you're not a programmer, if you're not a person that works in business or not business, building automation, that you can do this easily.
Yeah, it's now just a simple hobby like anything else. And that's something that I would kind of tell people, is that if you do find a certain product or an availability of a brand that you like, either works well or is in your price range, stay inside that brand, because ultimately you're living inside of that brand, and then it's having to connect in some way to your hub. And whether that's through authentication of an app between the two of them, or just being on the network, there's still going to be some settings and controls inside of that brand. So inevitably you're going to have an app for that brand on your phone. And so if you buy 3 different brands of outlets, you're just going to have to deal with 3 different versions. They're going to have updates. It's going to be way more to handle. Whereas if you say, okay, I like iHome or I like Wise, I'm going to stay in that ecosystem. So you just get used to it. You know where the updates are. You're in that app more frequently. So if there is an update, you see it and you go ahead and install that patch and keep it going.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree that you want to find the one that works for you. And again, just like you were saying, it's just from the simple ease of setting it up. Once you've learned it, you just keep adding to it. It's not learning something new every time.
Yeah. And so I would say, an outlet is probably a good first place for someone to start, because it just turns something on and off. If you've got a basic coffee machine or something, whereas, if it's set to when it comes on, if it has a manual switch or something where you can have it on, it just needs power, have it on and ready with the outlet turned off, and then say, okay, it's 6:15 every morning, turn my coffee pot on. Simple things like that. So it's not just lamps. That fans are a great one if you want a little white noise at night or something like that. From there, I would say probably the next logical jump, and this is where you definitely have a lot more experience, and you mentioned it briefly, were light bulbs and lighting in your house.
Yeah, so that's how I got started as far as doing it at home. What I went with was the Philips Hue. It's HUE. And what it does is you take their bridge and it is hardwired into your router. And then it's just a matter of, like you were saying, populating it. So I started with a strip light, like I was talking about, this behind my television. Then I incorporated different lights throughout the house. And the perk I see of those versus just an on or off, I can set those, like I was saying, when we go to bed, that way there are 2 lights, one in my living room, one in the room next to it, that go to 5%. So it basically serves as a nightlight, and they're all LED. So the energy usage is minimal, and you can still see. And that's how I started with it. And then I branched. Goodness gracious, we've got probably about 8 or 10 of those lights in various places. And it's really nice. And we can, the home knows, okay, I'm leaving. So let's say the kids forgot to turn off the lights in their room, or I forgot to turn off the light in the living room. When we leave, they turn off. So even if you don't want to go the route of doing the automation, you can look on your phone when you're not home and say, oh goodness, I forgot to turn off the coffee pot, or I forgot to turn off, well, not the coffee pot would be the switch, but I forgot to turn off the living room lights. Boom. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so that's how I got started with the lights, and it's just been from there.
Yeah. And I will say I'm very new to the lights. My first bulb, which I got from Wise, I just got a couple months ago, maybe. And I got a 3-pack. So I'm like, okay, where am I going to put these? Because like I said, I'm mostly 4-lamp. So those are already, set up on the outlet. So now it's kind of like, okay, well, where can I put a bulb? What's an area? So I have found a couple places, like over my kitchen sink is a great example. There was an awkward switch that was behind a little plant. So every time I go to wash dishes and needed a little extra lighting, I'd go over there and flip that and kind of fumble with it. So now I just leave that switch on, and then I turn it on and off with the Echo. Right. And so I actually use a routine, which if we have time, I'll kind of explain what that is later on. That's maybe Smart Home 102. You can program the Echo to understand phrases and then have things happen due to that phrase. Right. So I say, to the Echo, I'm washing dishes, and the light turns on. Right. And like you said, it's awesome because you can control the color a little bit. Some are full spectrum colors. You can have, you probably don't want to turn on the red light, but you can have a full spectrum of colors. And the Wise bulb kind of goes from a cool blue tint to a warm yellow. And like you said, percentages. So I actually have some, throughout the day where if it comes on in the evening due to motion, it's a little softer. So I'm not blinded trying to, get up in the middle of the night, something like that. So bulbs are a great next step.
Yeah. My kids love, as we're watching a movie, it's funny, depending on the movie, they'll adjust whatever colors behind the television. So, if we're watching Lord of the Rings, okay, so it's red behind the TV now, or we're watching this, it's green. It's fun to watch the kids pick what color is behind what movie we're watching.
That's really cool. And I've seen where Philips and a couple of these are working on ones that will actually integrate into the movie and it will change automatically. I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Again, everything is going the route of integration. Whether it's, that's like you said, that's 102.
Yeah. Absolutely. But so you've got outlets to turn lights on and off if they're, lamps or coffee pot or a fan or what have you. You've got bulbs, which you can just put somewhere standalone. They also, this isn't something I'm really going to get into, but they make like physical switches. I've got one I'm getting ready to put on my fireplace. It has a solo switch on it. And that way I can turn it on and off with voice command. Or at Christmas, I love to automate all my lights to come on to a voice command. Christmas lights, the Christmas tree. Throwing the fireplace on with that would be kind of cool. But also mainly the safety thing that you brought up. Did we leave the house? Is the fireplace on? Well, let's just open my phone and check on it. I think that'll be clutch. So that's another add-on that people can do. But you've got to wire that. So that's not really an intro product.
Yeah, and it's like you were talking about Christmas. It made me think we're controlling our Christmas lights via the switches, the Wise switches I have. So you're able to time them. You don't have to remember to plug them in, unplug them, all that kind of stuff. You just need to make sure that your amp draws enough for the switch, because that's one thing I think a lot of people forget is they just plug stuff in. And you got to make sure your amp draws right so you don't fry your switch.
Yeah,
but that's just a cool feature.
Yeah, and that's a good point with the Christmas lights is that some brands do make outdoor specific smart outlets. And so I've got a couple of those that I used at Christmas as well. So you want to make sure you don't just put a normal.
Right. It will say on it, indoor use or outdoor use. Make sure you follow those rules.
Yeah, because I wouldn't even recommend using an indoor wall plug anywhere outside. That moisture, anything can get to it. They are susceptible to that. They will melt down and set your house on fire.
Yes, that is not good.
No, not at all. So I would say the thing maybe after you got the basic lights coming on and off, you're controlling those with your hub, are cameras. And these little guys right here are amazing.
Game changers.
Full credit for turning me on to these little guys, because this is a $25 wireless smart camera.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So about a year ago, Ikea's, and he said, "Man, have you seen this new company called Wise?" And I said, "No, man, I've never heard of it." He says they have a security camera, and the reason he brought these up is because I had been trying to find a good, affordable security camera.
Yeah.
So I go to their website and I look at it, and like you were saying, their basic, the V2 is what that's called, security camera is $19.99 on their website, and then shipping's usually $2 or $3. So right at $25, you have a wireless security camera. And now, disclaimer, and they will say this on their site, the camera that you held up is intended for indoor use.
Yes.
They are in the process of working on and releasing a fully exterior camera. Now, with that in mind, I have had numerous cameras that I have had mounted outside under a like an eave, so that it's not in direct sunlight, it's not in direct rain. They've been out in wintertime, they've been out in summertime. I have had zero problems with them. And the reason I kind of took that approach is it's not that money can be thrown away easily, but if I'm going to experiment with something, I would much rather experiment with a $20 camera than I would a $200 camera.
Oh, definitely.
But as far as setup, they are super easy. It takes you, and I'm not joking, you can go to their website and see this. It's less than 2 minutes to set up a camera. All you need to know is your wireless SSID and your wireless password. And that's it. The rest it does for you once you plug it in. Now, one thing it does not come with for the $20 is an SD card. The perk of having that SD card is that is continuous recording. They give you 14 days of free cloud use. So in other words, when there is movement detected, it takes a 12-second. Yeah, there you go.
It's a micro SD. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
Very, very, very small thing here. And this one is 32 gigabytes.
Right. That's the one I would suggest, because 32 gig will get you about a standard, probably about a week of storage. And what that means is constant storage. It never turns off. What they give you for free is a 12-second window of when movement was detected. That's uploaded to the cloud, so that even if somebody knocked it off the wall or took it and left, you should have that 12-second storage of whatever just happened. So when I saw those, that was obviously the first thing I went with. And this is still in the camera realm, but it kind of piggybacks into something else. They released a bunch of other things that integrate with that camera. So you can do all kinds of other things that we can talk about in a minute with. But as far as cameras go, like I said, you've got Ring, you've got, goodness, what are some of the other ones? There's all kinds of companies out there. But in all honesty, the least expensive one I saw would probably be right around the $200 range as far as a good, dependable camera from the other ones. But why so far? Again, I've been running those for about a year and have had very little issues with them. They're a really awesome company. And again, this is not a infomercial for them.
For this,
right? They are not.
I mean, if you want to, I'll give you information.
Yeah, there you go. But truly, they're a good company, because I did have one that kind of just stopped working. They sent me another one, no questions asked. So for me, that goes a long way, how a company takes care of me as a consumer, so that, from now on, I will be more prone to use them. But it's just been a good product. And like I said, I've had them for about a year now. I have quite a few, monitoring everything from my basement to the outside of the house. Actually, if you've got, parents that you want to check on, I've got some set up around my mother's house so that she can see outside. That way, if somebody, now with the social distancing, you look at, you've got deliveries coming to your house. You put one so that you can see, motions detected at the front door, like you were saying with your Ring. You can use them for all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, I'm actually going to throw it up on the screen. I completely forgot we had a screenshot here
Yeah,
of,
there you go.
of your surveillance, and this is just a fraction of your cameras. You have quite a few, but this is just native in the Wise app. Yeah,
Yes.
native in the Wise app. You have a little grid, so you can keep track of everything. You get a little notification when something's going on, so they're super helpful. I did end up going to be super safe because my garage doesn't have much of an eave overhang. It just gets a lot of sun and weather exposure. I went for an outdoor specific camera. I still went budget friendly and found the company TP-Link, which has made wireless routers and technology for years and years. They have a brand called Kasa, Kasa. And I've been very pleased with their outdoor camera. I think it was about $60, something like that. So there are options, but both of those, like you said, are way cheaper than Nest and Ring, which are looking at $200 for an outdoor camera from either one of those brands, which are great brands. They're going to work well. And if you decide all you're going to do is get a Google on hub, you're going to get maybe a Nest thermostat and a Nest cam for outside and maybe one inside. You're looking at probably $600 all in for something like that. But you're going to be in one ecosystem. So nothing wrong with that at all.
Right. Agreed.
Let me close that back out there. So I think cameras are also super helpful. From there, talk about a little bit about the hub and the Wise Hub, and then the sensors. They just came out with Wise Sense.
Yeah. So when I started, buying Wise products, I was on all their mailing lists. As my wife says, they love you. You should be endorsing them. We visited my wife's sister on the West Coast last year, and I was tempted to go by their office, which is in Seattle, but it just didn't work out. But they have a new thing called Wise Sense, and there is a small bridge that plugs into the back of a camera. Again, there's no programming. Right there where the USB goes in, you plug it in, and what it allows you to do is add motion sensors and contact sensors. Motion sensors are kind of what they sound like. If something moves in front of it, it will sense the motion. Contact sensors are like if you want to put them on a window or on a door, what it will tell you is door is open, door is closed. It is a on-off kind of
it's a
wording.
Contact.
Correct. I should have gotten some of them and had them on hand to be able to show you, but they're really handy. So, for example, I've got them on all of our exterior doors for two reasons. One, we forgot to close the front door and it's bedtime, or we're gone, and you can set up different scenarios in the app so that if a door opens and we're all at the store, it tells me the door is open. So that's really handy, and you can get really creative with them. I used a hasp and mounted one on my garage door so that when the garage door opens, the contact sensor opens and lets me know that the garage door is open, so that if it's been an hour, I actually have mine set to where if the garage door has been open longer than 20 minutes to alert me. That way, if we get home from the store and I forget to close it, it reminds you, hey man, you forgot to close the garage door. So those are super handy. And with that bridge in place, again, you can have up to 100 devices on one bridge. Now, that goes back to our original conversation of network. Those do not communicate on the network, but the more you add of those is still information traffic. So back to the original statement, you've got to have a good network. But those are really cool. That gives you so many different options in your house to be able to see if there's motion, to be able to see if a door's open, to see if if you've got small children, you could put them on the doors under the sink to let someone to let someone opened where the cleaning supplies are. Or again, anywhere you need notification of something being open or closed or movement, and those are again super affordable. You can buy the Sense kit, which is $20, and that comes with the bridge that you have to make them all communicate, and 3 of the contact sensors. And that's $20. For the motion sensors, they're $5. So again, I really like that they're giving you all these different opportunities to control different things and get information about different things, and it not be so much that you can't afford it.
Yeah, super, super cheap, almost to where, I mean, you can play around with it. Say, grab
Yeah.
a kit. Especially you talk about basements or exterior doors, places like that are great. I have the contact sensors I got with my kit on two of our exterior doors. And I have the one that we always let our dogs in and out on our patio so they can run in the
Yeah.
backyard. I have it, the Amazon Echo will say who let the dogs out anytime that trigger opens. So every time the contact switch opens, it lets you know that the door is opening. So you can do fun things with it like that. Or simply, like you said, it'll just push you out a notification. Hey, your door's open. You can have it turn on
Right.
lights. Any of the things we've talked about, you can have them all work together. So you might say,
Yeah.
hey, after 10 o'clock, if that door opens, turn on the lights because nobody's supposed to be in there. Start
Yeah,
alarm,
actually,
trigger, or something like that.
yeah, I have all that set up as well. Like, for example, when my garage door opens, my lights in the basement turn on. I have motion sensors in my basement where if there's movement, the lights turn on. And I use one of the contact switches and use a night light so that if at night there's movement, that light comes on. So I know if that light comes on, something's moving in my basement. So
Yeah.
while it's not necessarily a security system, it is a way to notify you if something is different in your home.
Yeah, and I would definitely point that out. You can do security type features with this, but
Yes.
remember that when you're in charge, like these aren't security products where you're paying for
Right.
monitoring. And basically, disclaimer, don't go spend $30 on something and then get upset if someone breaks into
Yes.
your house and it doesn't
Yeah.
stop.
It is not. It is not a security system, and that's another thing that's really cool. That when you buy these products, at least the ones we've talked about, you're done. There's nothing else. There's no subscription services. There's no. I mean, it is literally whatever you want it to be, and that's it.
Yeah, especially with Wise. Wise is awesome about that. Most of the products that you buy, the Hue, anything like that, definitely out of the box. You just pay for it, no subscriptions or anything. Some of
Correct.
the companies that we did mention, like Nest, which we'll get into thermostats,
Yes.
the Ring doorbell. Nest also has a doorbell now. They do have subscription plans that they want you
Yes.
on,
Yes.
where it might be $1.99 a month, or it's not expensive, and they will record. Where you were saying on an SD card, you can store it on your camera for 2 weeks. They'll have infinite cloud storage for $1.99
Yes.
a month or something like that. So that can
Right.
be helpful for folks.
Right. And that just gives you the different options. Because again, if you're wanting something, bare bones, so to speak, that is not going to cost you monthly, you can go this route. If you want something that might be next tier or, I don't know, the next step, then you've got all those that have all these different options for storage for whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. So speaking of thermostats, I mean, Honeywell makes one now.
Yeah.
Nest is the big brand. They kind of started. That's what
FOB.
I have. Yeah. Yeah. Um, do you have a smart thermostat yet?
I do not. I have been trying to do some research and find the one that I like the best, and again that integrates with what I have. So no, not as of yet. We had planned some reno stuff, and I was kind of holding off until we completed that.
Yeah, I think they can be super useful, but they are also they're pricey. I mean, you're looking,
Yes.
some of the cheaper ones I think are about $100 now. I think you can get
Yeah.
like Ecobee or something in that range. The Nest I think is still going to be in the 160 to 200 range, maybe even 250 for the
And
latest version.
and to beat Wise's drum again, they're working on one. So that's one of the reasons I'm kind of holding out on that. And again, yeah, there's it's infinite.
Yeah, and I will say installing the thermostat, which I've had to do a couple of times in my old house and in this one, because I brought it with me for that price. It's not staying. But Nest is, I will say, was great with. You can send them a picture of what wires you have on your side. Now you work in HVAC, so you probably wouldn't need their help, but they'll tell you exactly where to plug what into the back. So it does take a little bit of advanced installation, like the switches.
And if you have any inclination or any hesitation, I should say, don't do it. I know a service call from a company is not cheap, but you can really ruin your heating and cooling system if you wire up the thermostat wrong. So take it in your own hands.
Yeah. But once it is set up, and whether you do it yourself or professionally, I think it's really neat because you can, we've had these smart thermostats for a little while where you can kind of program temperatures at certain times of the day. But this takes it to an all new level where you then can control it. I have an Amazon routine, which I keep mentioning, which you kind of can program these phrases. And I'll say, Alexa, I'm cold, and it will cut the heat up. You can set up different things like that, say increase the temperature 2 degrees, decrease it, different things like that. So it's really helpful. And I think they can help with your energy costs as well by keeping a better eye on when it's being used. And also when you leave the house, you have away mode, which will save energy as well.
Yeah. And a lot of those learn. So they'll learn, okay, it's nighttime. I know they like it this temperature, or there's no movement, so I don't need to cool it or heat it as much. So it's really cool kind of how they learn, even though it's spooky at the same time.
No, it's definitely a little creepy. And now that Google owns Nest,
yes,
for what that's worth. I didn't actually have this in the notes, but I just thought about it because we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Smart TVs and smart TV devices. I actually think that might be one that people would want to throw pretty early on in the mix.
Yeah. And that kind of goes hand in hand. Again, me as an Apple person, I have an Apple TV, which is the hub, if you will, of how I control everything. Because like I was talking about that good night feature, when I either say good night or tell it that way, the TV turns off. It's all encompassing as far as the smart TV goes.
That's something I didn't think about. You have to have an Apple TV, correct?
Yes.
HomeKit.
Okay. So for HomeKit, you have two options. You either have to have an Apple TV, or you have to have an iPad that remains in the home.
Okay. So a lot of people probably have that.
Yeah, both of those are required to run HomeKit. I didn't think of that. I'm glad you brought that up. But the Apple TV is what serves as my hub. Previous to that, I did use an iPad. So it just now apparently an iPhone doesn't work the same as far as to be the hub, but yeah, it's easy setup. It's not that hard.
And so I think this is important, and this isn't really a one-on-one topic, but this might help people decide when they're going to pick products, or at least a little bit more information about which hub to start if you're going to go with one over the other. Something that I've found a few kinks with over the years, and I think it's gotten a lot better. It's smoothed out, I would say, in the last 2 years, but was much more prevalent, is the idea. So with Amazon, like I said, you connect from your Amazon account to accounts of these other products that you have. So iHome, Nest, so on and so forth. So what Amazon is actually doing is when you talk to the Echo, it's sending your request out, processing it, then sending whatever you said to that device app. So then out to your iHome switch or whatever. So you've got these moving pieces going in and out of the network. So if you have a network that goes down, and I'm not talking about in your home, but let's say the iHome brand, their cloud network experiences an outage or has something going on, that the Amazon, the Echo, even though you said turn this lamp off, and it sends it out and it's telling that switch to turn off, it's then having to send that information back into your outlet. So there's a lot of places where communication can break down. This has gotten a lot better, but there were many times where I would say to my Echo, turn a light off, and it would say that device is not responding right now. And then I would turn to my iPhone and say, hey, Siri, turn this light off. And it happens instantaneous because, as you said, it's doing it internally through either your Apple TV or that iPad that you're using. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, is either you're inside of your home communicating, or it's going out and coming back in. Right.
And obviously, if you're not home, and whether your network or Spectrum, Charter, AT&T, wherever your provider is having an issue, obviously you can't connect unless that is up.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, I mean, if you've already got some Apple products and you've got an iPad, unfortunately, that Apple TV is now $200 or $149, I think, is the base.
Yeah, they're coming down a little bit.
So it's tough if you've got to have that up front, especially when you can buy an Echo Dot for, like I said, $20 or $30 on Prime Day.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing to kind of keep in mind, especially with Apple products, when you hear something new is coming out, that is when you look to get the previous version. Because usually Apple will drop, if it's a Series 4, you can get a Series 3 for $100, $200 less that will work just as fine. It just may not have the newest bells and whistles. And if it's only one series previous, usually all maybe a new feature you don't have or something like that.
Yeah, and I just want them to have an Apple TV remote that I can tell which direction it's going. But I would say, if you can, I would set everything up on multiple devices. I mean, as I said, I'm working with Apple and with Amazon in the house. The Amazon products work really well together, so you can get a Fire Stick for $40, plug that into your TV, control that with your voice. It will also pick up your Wise camera, so you can tell your TV to, hey, show my outdoor camera if you hear noise of the night, and it's going to show your camera up on your TV.
Yes.
Things like that are really cool. So if you have the option, the cheaper route's probably going to be Amazon. But if you've got that iPad and want to do the HomeKit as well, Wise is not HomeKit compatible.
No, they are not. That is one thing, like you were talking about, the API that Apple has not released. And yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. So those are kind of some things that you have to filter through. But like we said, there is a way most of the time around that. And the last topic we can jump in on is called If This Then That, or IFTTT.
Yes.
This is something that I've been using for years. You messaged me about it probably a year or two ago as well. And I was like, hey, and I'd forgotten about it because years ago when we did it, what it does is uses open APIs, which are application information hooks that people put out. And so you have Facebook, Google, so your Gmail, all the smart home stuff, Nest and Ring, and all these different devices. Hue is involved in that. There are literally hundreds of these applets that you can connect to each other. So what are a couple of your if this then that's? And basically the premise to explain if this then that is basically how computer programming is thought, logic.
Yes.
That's how you write any sort of code or program. It's if this happens, then this happens in its form.
And that's the beauty of that app, is it breaks it down into its simplest form, like you were saying, so that you don't have to be able to write lines and lines of code. You can literally say, like, to give you for an example, when my garage door opens, the contact switch opens. So I have one written that says, if garage door opens, then turn on basement lights. So once the garage door closes, then I have it to where after 5 minutes, those lights turn back off. So if you're coming home late at night, you don't have to fumble through yes, your garage door has that horrible light on it that is about like your refrigerator door, so it's not really dependable. So this way, when you get home, when your garage door opens, and look at it as a security thing, if the lights are on, someone's less likely to come in. It allows you to see, so you're not tripping over things like your kids' bikes or whatever. So yeah, that's one way I use it. I also use it for motion. So for example, the Hue light bulbs. So since Wise is not part of Hue and Hue is not part of Wise, I have it to where if motion senses in the basement, then tell Wise switch to turn on, which has a light on it. So that way I know, and I have a timer, not a timer, but a time of day on it. So if it doesn't do that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that way if somebody goes to do laundry, you don't have lights coming on and off. But if it's after 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and that light comes on, there's motion wherever you've set it to indicate. So while, like we've said before, it's not a security system, it is a way for you to be prepared should something arise in your house.
Yeah, and so IFTTT is free. It's just
absolutely free.
And so you can play around there. And like I said, there are so many things. It's not just smart home. You could connect it to like a Google document and have it record the time and date or something every time motion happens, or
Yeah.
or how long a light's been on or something. If you want to track your kids, are you turning the lights off? Or so, I mean, there's so many things that you can connect to. And I've mentioned the Amazon routines as well, which is the same premise that they build it inside of the Amazon Echo app, where you can go in there and set these routines, and you can have it based on a device. So if that switch opens or closes, or if the motion sensor detects something, that can be the trigger. Or if you want it to be verbal, when you say, like mine was Merry Christmas. And when I said Merry Christmas, it started playing Christmas music on all of the Echoes in my entire house at the same time. The Christmas tree switch came on, the outside Christmas lights came on. And then this year I plan on having the fireplace, turn on. So there's a lot that you can do with it. And you can also connect across multiple products, which is great.
Yeah.
So one that I have for security purposes is, if at night the Ring doorbell detects motion, it turns the lights on in the living room. So, okay, hey, someone walks up to your door, lights coming on, it's going to alert the dogs, that whole thing. But now I'm connecting a Ring product with a Wise product and an iHome switch. So you can now start to bridge these different brands together if you're buying a switch from here and a bulb from here.
Yeah, because originally that was not the case. You either bought everything under that same ecosystem, or they would not work. So IFTTT has been really big as far as bridging that gap, so that you can use multiple services, products, whatever you want to call it, and they all talk to each other and play nice.
Yeah, and another cool one too that you can integrate with is Twitter. So you could have it like send out a tweet or something whenever something happens. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's all encompassing.
Well, I hope that this was very helpful. We're about 5 minutes inside the hour, so we've taken up the majority of it. I don't really see any questions. Someone related to you, your wife, pointed out in the chat that if you're a bargain shopper, Target Circle will run deals inside that Circle app. So you can get 15 to 25% off few products and stuff. So that's super helpful for me to know, because I do want one of those light strips behind my TV.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I don't see any other particular questions or comments. So I hope that this was helpful. And then we're going to have to go ahead and work on Smart Home 102 course and get that going.
Hey, it's spring break, man. I'm not going anywhere.
That's right. We're all quarantined right now. We're going to look back on this time period as the time that either we all went crazy or we produced some amazing digital content that will be there for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it, Brian. And
absolutely.
Let me, I'll throw the banner off here. We've got our names and everything.
Hey.
Looking.
Oh, what?
That's really, really difficult to do.
Backwards. Yeah.
We'll do a Brady Bunch thing later. I appreciate it, Brian. And let's do it again.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.